all the suffering of the people of Gwatyu, I know, and it is my suffering too, and my family too.
In October this year, the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Toko Didiza, announced that 700,000 hectares of state-owned land would be advertised for land reform. This would be in the form of 30-year leases for emerging farmers if they met certain criteria.
We have received online applications amounting to about 5,838, which include cooperatives and also individual farmers.
Most of these 654 state-owned farms are located on the boundaries of former homelands, and many of the farms advertised for leasing are already occupied by farming communities who have lived there for generations.
You have got certain farms where they were abandoned and there were farm dwellers and farm workers, and other people came into those lands and nothing was actually done to ensure that their security is clearly defined. So we're trying to deal with all of those issues, and in our view it's an important process of land reform.
One of the areas on which 53 of these farms have been advertised is a place called Gwatyu. Comprising 42,000 hectares and 88 farms, it is located in the remote mountains of the Eastern Cape. In the 1970s, during apartheid, Gwatyu was incorporated into the Transkei under the rule of Chief Kaiser Matanzima. White farm owners who had been there for over a century subsequently departed from Gwatyu, leaving behind thousands of labourers and their families who became farmers in their own right.
I was born here in 1973, and my parents were also born here, both of them, but my mother from another farm here in Gwatyu. In my family, we didn't have much, but we never slept without food.
Thembekazi Macheke was one of the few farm children to receive a university education.
Most of the youth in Gwatyu do not go as far as up to high school.
Thembekazi has returned to her roots to wage a desperate struggle on behalf of thousands of farm dwellers to own the farms on which they toil, to prosper and to create a better life for themselves and their loved ones. But now, with the recent announcement by the minister and the advertisements of farms for lease, she and her community fear they will be forced to vacate the land. The farm on which her parents worked, where she and her siblings grew up, is included in the allocated land up for grabs.
We want this land to be transferred to the community of Gwatyu so that we can also become the farmers that used to use this land, during the apartheid time.
I first met Thembekazi in 2017. She had invited me to attend a meeting of the Gwatyu Communal Property Association, or CPA, an entity formed with the help of businessman and former Umkhonto Sizwe commander, Obi Mabena.
My mission in Gwatyu is, one, to facilitate the transfer of land to the people of Gwatyu, but not as an end unto itself. The end is that once this land has been transferred to the people of Gwatyu, we are going to provide the necessary technical and whatever wherewithal for them to farm, not for subsistence farming purposes, but to farm in the same way that these farms were used to contribute to the food security of the country.
A CPA is a legal entity through which land reform beneficiaries can acquire, manage and develop state-owned land.
In terms of that act, it is very simple to get any community to secure tenure of land and begin to use that farm. But the reality is something else.
In 2014, the Gwatyu community submitted an official application to be formally registered as a CPA. Their slogan was, "Nothing for us, about us, without us." But 6 years later, the department has not yet registered the CPA and seems in no hurry to do so.
Can we agree that we do not refer to them as CPA because it's not there? Because I'm avoiding the situation where we are confusing people by saying there is a CPA when there is no CPA.
The aging community, most of whom rely on social grants, are destitute. Despite a municipal budget to maintain the mountainous infrastructure, there is no electricity, fencing or water, and the land has become eroded.
The community decided that, because the government is not doing anything for us, let's do the little we can do. Let's collect, 50 rands from each household and then pay a tractor to help us, to fix especially the bad areas of this road.
During the COVID lockdown, Gwatyu was completely cut off from assistance.
The most fearful thing for us, because, to prevent COVID, it requires high level of hygiene. So without water, then how do you do?
When lockdown restrictions ended, together with cameraman Bulelani Scott, I travelled again to Gwatyu to further investigate why the promised land has remained a land of empty promises. I also wanted to pay my respects to the memory of Tembakazi's father, Sidodo Macheke, who passed away this year at the age of 90. He was a passionate farmer with a sharp mind despite his growing frailty.
My father was involved in the struggle of Gwatyu because he wanted to see, as much as he was old, but he wanted to see, his dream of getting the land that he grew up on, to him, to the community of Gwatyu, but unfortunately that never happened.
When he passed on, the first thing that came to my mind was that, is it possible for people to be this cruel, that this old man has to die without having realized his lifelong dream? He was born here, he grew up here, and his siblings, for example, as these graves are testifying now, they're all buried here. Can there be any more evidence of the people's roots in a place?
The area where Gwatyu is located has a complex and tragic history. In the 19th century, it was occupied by a powerful clan belonging to the Abatembu tribe called the Amachachu. They were defeated by the British colonialists, dispossessed of their land and stripped of their identity.
They were a sore thumb to the English rule, to the extent that Sir George Cathcart issued a decree that they must stop existing as a tribe.
In a 2018 program on Gwatyu, Special Assignment extensively interviewed prominent politician and former Deputy Finance Minister Mondli Gungubele. He is a descendant of the Amachachu, and although he does not live in Gwatyu, he has been the dominant voice lobbying for the land to be returned to the clan.
I can say with authority, I play a key role on the future of Machachu.
But South Africa's land restitution laws state that land claims cannot predate the 1913 Land Act. Consequently, the Amachachu's repeated land claims have been rejected.
It's like you are being penalized for being dispossessed before 1913.
It's state land. You've now got an overlay of tribal land, inverted commas, as a result of Matanzima's intervention. You've got the chief there, and you've got other chiefs, more minor chiefs. You've got farm dwellers who regard themselves as incipient farmers and not as farm workers anymore. And you've got lessees of very different calibers, some farming actively, some just coming occasionally.
Rosalie Kingwell is an expert on land tenure with extensive knowledge of Gwatyu and its tortured history. She recalls the apartheid era when Gwatyu was incorporated into the Transkei Bantustan under Chief Matanzima. The 1995 Heath Commission found that Matanzima's reign was rife with corruption.
He allocated the land to a lot of his close connections. One of his 5 wives, his praise singer, 3 of his brothers, and several other chiefs closely connected to him.
Today, Gwatyu is the site of a bitter land dispute. Mondli Gungubele's uncle is a Chachu chief who goes by the praise name Jongolundi. He is a lessee and a member of the Gwatyu CPA, but he has been proclaimed by some of the clan as the rightful heir to Gwatyu a claim rejected by the farm dwellers, whose affiliation is not with a single tribal authority, but with South Africa's constitutional democracy. But both sides feel abandoned by government.
It seems as if nobody is really concerned. Those in authority, let me say, they do very little to assist us.
With the dawn of democracy, Gwatyu was reincorporated into South Africa under the custodianship of the South African Development Trust. Although it included private farms with title deeds, Gwatyu was deemed as state-owned. The farm dwellers believed government would transfer the title deeds into their names, providing them with ownership, support and security.
I had, this belief that this is our government. Definitely they will do whatever they can do for us to change our lives. But unfortunately, I think I was just naive. The government is doing anything that they can do to make life as difficult as they can do.
A lot of officials and outside people who are making applications from the outside for this land, they would see it as their land for the taking. And the farm dwellers, they're seen as invisible and powerless, and they are just seen as people who can be just picked up and moved and dumped in a township.
This perspective is borne out in the township of Tembani. Also part of Gwatyu, it used to be called Othay. Several years ago, many Gwatyu farm dwellers were persuaded to leave their farms, like the Feni family, and move to the township with the promise of houses, employment opportunities, and a sustainable infrastructure.
That one was a project that was initiated by the municipality many years ago, and it identified people that were no longer happy about living on farms. And then they established that settlement.
Our government have attracted us with beautiful things. In fact, they try to, by all means, for us to believe their story because they're going to build a town here. So, when someone is talking about town, there are greener pastures there. They try by all means to drag us over here, forgetting what is going on behind. And then here we are now, we're stuck here now. False promises, that's what I can say.
I was born on the farm in Gwatyu. I never went to school, but I was happy. What pains me now is that we were persuaded to move from the farm to here because government promised us houses. But we don't even see the people who made these promises. Now we are getting old and without assistance, we are struggling to survive.
Patrick Feni and his siblings are the children of Yuyu Johnson and Nomost Feni, one of Gwatyu's oldest farming families. Like his friend, Tembakazi's father, Sidodo, Feni died this year, a broken man. At the time of his death, he had been embroiled in a court case with the current occupiers of the farm on which he lived, trying to reclaim his land.
My father, he believes in farming. He loves farming, actually. He's passionate. In fact, when I grew up, there's a portion of a farm, the Bridge Farm, where we grew up as young children. There's a small dam there which white farmers, they used that. They left it actually to him.
Are you determined to fight in the name of your father?
Yes, I will. I will stand on my father's behalf. That's what I will do. By all means, I will push every fist I will do. Gwatyu is my birthright.
But since the government has advertised scores of Gwatyu farms for lease, the remaining farming community fears that it will be forced to remain as tenants or labourers, or to relocate to Tembani, forever alienated like the Fenis from the land they love.
There are no people that are going to be pushed off from the farms to Tembani. If people want to go to Tembani, they will be going according to their own will.
There's a lot happening in Gwatyu. There's a lot of corruption that is happening over the, Gwatyu farms. And like I said, the way we live, it is done deliberately because they want to make, life difficult for us so that we can maybe choose to leave, these farms.
The Gwatyu community alleges that their struggle to register their CPA and secure ownership on the farms on which they live and work has been filled with betrayal by the department.
They made a commitment that they are going to register the CPA, meaning transferring, a Gwatyu land to the people of Gwatyu.
In 2015, the community pooled together their social grants and travelled to Cape Town to march on Parliament.
With respect to land controlled by CPAs and trusts, a full title deed will be transferred to households.
During a budget speech by the then Minister of Rural Development, Mr. Gwatyu, he promised the people of Gwatyu that he would look into their plight and fix what is wrong with the land issue in Gwatyu. Unfortunately, he did not follow up on this.
At the time, Thandeka Mbabana was the Shadow Minister of Land Reform in the Eastern Cape. In 2018, the Gwatyu farm dwellers approached the Democratic Alliance to help register their CPA.
The people of Gwatyu have been shunted from pillar to post ever since the early 2014-2015 by the Department of Rural Development and Land Reform.
In 2015, the as yet unregistered CPA demanded the department conduct a land audit.
We went to the office of the mayor in Queenstown, and amongst the demands that we made there was that a forensic audit of expenditure in the previous 5 years over Gwatyu should be made.
But despite the CPA's requests under the Promotion of Access to Information Act, the department initially denied the land audit's existence, then failed to publicly release its findings.
The results of that land audit are the ones that made us feel that we must really tread with caution, because in relation to this land audit, it actually came to the fore that there is an overlap, and therefore we were not able to just make a blanket approach. But our intention is to make sure that the community is taken along.
When will the results of that 2015 land audit be made public?
What I can tell you, in this financial year, we would be able to do that soonest.
This didn't happen, a case of history repeating itself. As far back as 2000, land tenure expert Rosalie Kingwell had conducted a comprehensive land audit of Gwatyu. Her findings were clear.
Some places where the lessees are in control, they should get the land. Other places where farm dwellers are clearly in control, they should get the land, and then there should be support.
Those findings were never implemented.
It's not only Gwatyu. All the other pockets of state land where I worked, and I worked in many, not one of those got acted on. In some cases, I'd even worked with the municipalities to do the funding proposals. And that points to gross ineptitude.
But is this incompetence or something else?
To me, there seems to be some underlying reason why they don't want to register. The department is dragging its feet because there's this contestation. And I believe that there is quite a bit of incompetence at the local level of rural development and at the provincial level. And I also believe that there is a lot of interference by the national department.
In 2018, the Gwatyu farm dwellers demanded another land rights inquiry. The department appointed some Namzi and Makata attorneys to conduct the inquiry. It cost the department almost R500,000, but it was never completed.
They were appointed through the Land Rights Management Facility of the department, which assists when there are land right issues. They were doing the land rights inquiry, and the process had to be stopped because the community members there, they blocked the roads and they said they don't want any people coming into their community. So we could not proceed with the exercise.
They were claiming that it's because of lack of cooperation from the people of Gwatyu. But then how do we cooperate on something that we were never consulted on? Because they only consulted with Gungubele.
I'm one of the main claimants. I'm very senior in the family, but I'm not owning even a meter square there. And actually, I've got no ambitions. That land is wealthy, is even wealthier in proportion to the number of people who are going to benefit. That land, when worked in a peaceful environment, very quickly, people who stay there will have enough what they want. What is going to be key is the money and the wealth they will create. Of course, with those prospects, criminals are going to emerge.
This issue of Amachachu is causing a lot of problems in Gwatyu. I think that if that can be cleared once and for all, but we are hoping through this legal route that we are going to take, that is going to be cleared.
In 2019, another land inquiry was conducted, or, according to the department, the 2018 inquiry was continued. To date, it remains incomplete.
We were invited to a meeting in Queenstown, but we were told that the lands inquiry is not ready yet.
The minister, her interest is to make sure that agricultural land is used productively. That's her interest. Now, as to who uses that land, it can be either somebody that comes from outside, it could be people that are currently occupying the land, it could be just anyone, as long as that person qualifies in terms of the criteria of looking for a lessee.
But it makes no sense for the minister to have advertised the Gwatyu farms and other state land before the completion of the land rights inquiry that would determine the farm dwellers' fate.
As the people of Gwatyu, we are not going to apply for for leasing of the farms, because for us, I mean, we have a deal with the department. They agreed, they made a commitment that they are going to register the CPA.
The first thing is for us to put the department on terms so that the CPA can be registered. We will go to court if it is necessary to do that.
According to land reform experts, the department's actions could be in violation of a little-known but crucial law, the 1996 Interim Protection of Informal Dwellers Act. This piece of legislation protects communities living on state-owned land, particularly in the former homelands, if they have lived and farmed there for more than 5 years prior to 1997.
The majority of them who don't work for any of the lessees who are farming in their own right now, they all are covered by IPILRA, which is the Interim Protection of Informal Land Rights. So it protects people against dispossession. It's a very, very strong law, even though it's very misunderstood and not being used adequately.
What would you, Tembakazi Macheke, and your sister and your family do if you lost this farm?
Well, I mean, there's nothing else now we can do besides taking legal route.
It might be too late for Sidodo Macheke, for Yuyu Johnson Feni, and countless others whose dreams of ownership died with them. But for the living, the dream of the promised land continues.
We have to fight until, whatever happens. As long as we live, we will continue fighting.